Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast with me, Sam Harris, your host. I invite fascinating humans from all walks of life to share their wisdom and unpack their mindsets and formulas for growth. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Lucca, who is an entrepreneur, communicator, podcaster, speaker, angel investor, just a hyper-curious person. Her podcast is called Hyper Curious, where she interviews really interesting people. And today it's my delight to have her as a really interesting person on the show. So what I like to start with is to just get an idea of the person in their own words in 3 minutes to just talk about like their life story.
Thank you for having me, Sam. I am a British Brazilian person, was born in Brazil. I won't say how many years ago. And I've been a very normal person growing up. I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood, spookily, but I know it was a very happy childhood with my mom looking after me and my sister. My parents got divorced when I was 6, which was a very impactful, in a painful way when I was young. But I think that gave me so much strength to see someone like my mom, who's a high achiever and always going out there and being an amazing professional and mom. And that really inspired me to be who I am today. I think if I want to summarize my life, I think I'm very fortunate to have had this role model as I was growing up, because I think it's very important for a woman nowadays. And I think it kind of planted a seed in my brain that I can be whoever I want to be. And I decided to leave a very comfortable position back in Rio de Janeiro 15 years ago when I was working for a very large TV broadcaster there called Global TV in the innovation area. And I decided to jump into the unknown and move countries, move to the UK, completely different culture, didn't know anyone here, didn't have any networks. And so I left a very comfortable position over there to venture into the new here. And I have no regrets about that. I think it was one of the best decisions that I've made. And I think it really made me who I am. It was super tough, as you can imagine, right? Like relearning everything and getting a new job here. And my English levels were really terrible. I did probably 5 steps back to in the future get 10 steps forward. And that defined me as someone who takes action, because I believe action beats overthinking. And that's exactly the same thing that I did 10 years ago when I started my first business. And I can tell you more about that.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like a really scary jump to make, but yeah, I agree. Sort of doing things that scare you and not overthinking them is usually always the things that work out for me. And overthinking stuff is always where like I just waste time and it goes wrong and I make stuff worse for myself. So I'm excited to hear more about your businesses because I know a bit about them. And so as in what then caused you to start the businesses and how did you take those forwards?
I was working Nokia, mobile phones company, and in the luxury division of that, again, in the innovation area. And at some point, I was getting very bored. I was like, what am I doing here with the goal of selling phones to high net worth individuals, right? I mean, I was not in the selling side of things, but, that was the goal of the company. Let's create more amazing luxury mobile phones for high net worth individuals. And I was really looking for something that would mean much more to me in terms of my bigger purpose and something that I could really change the world and add something to the world that makes people happier. And 2 of my best friends have been making games since they were children, working for a long time in the games industry. And we got together and we talked about, look, there's an opportunity here to create a new games company that could revolutionize the games industry because of, A, B, C, and D. And at the time, it was the time when Facebook games was kind of taking off and all of those people were kind of sharing invites to build their farms together. I don't know if you all remember this, but yeah, it was that time. And then we're like, well, actually, we could create a much better gaming experience here on Facebook for people who are already gamers and for people who are beyond, because everyone is on Facebook, right? And that was our positioning. We went for it. And the whole setup was like, okay, 2 of you know really well how to make great games. And I know very much how to grow products and how to, market those to the world. And so that was the kind of the deal. And we went into it. I was working between Nokia during the day, Virtu, right? The name of the division of Nokia during the day. And then in the evenings and weekends, I was going to a little office in East London to create the company. And yeah, I basically worked night and day, as I still do nowadays. And then after 6 months' time, we raised funds and I was able to leave the company and start Bossa Studios properly, like full time. And the interesting thing about that is, again, it's about this taking action, right? I loved starting a company from 0 to 1. And it was like all of the amazing and painful things that someone can imagine it is to start a company, from raising funds and hiring people and getting the office sorted and getting, all of the details of running a business, and of course dealing with investors. And I really got the bug of being an entrepreneur. And after 2 years after I started Bossa, I started another company with another co-founder. And it's been incredible being a serial entrepreneur. And one of my investors say that I'm a parallel entrepreneur, actually. So I do start companies and run them and look after them in different ways at the same time.
That's cool. I would love to become someone like that. I guess I've always had I've always had multiple things going on, and yeah, getting to the point where you can sit back and do things. So did you keep Bossa Studio going that whole time whilst you were running the second business and then growing that?
Yes, absolutely. When I started the second company, I think Bossa was probably about 30 something people. So everything was going on. So as you can imagine, I felt that I was a superwoman, a Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
and I ended up burning out. So it was not ideal setup, but I don't regret it, because I think I learned so much by starting to accommodate those, more than one thing in my life. And I really like that. I discover myself as this multi-potentialite. There's someone called Emily Wapnick. She did a TED talk on which she called people with multiple passions and interests a multi-potentialite. And the moment that I started to identify myself as a multi-potentialite was the moment that I opened up my mind and my energy levels to deal with multiple projects at the same time. And again, it's like, it was tough because I burned out. I had to change a few things in terms of my rhythm to make sure that I don't go into depression or anything more serious, right? But I do think that by exercising that, you just get more opportunities for your company and for yourself.
So lots of questions around lessons along this way. So firstly, going from no experience to starting a business 0 to 1, how did you know how to raise money and employ people and be working on the right things and not have it all go kind of tits up?
I read a lot. I talked to a lot of people. I started to get into a lot of network events in London. Network events where startups were literally, it was like a sponge absorbing everything. I was, on a mission to learn. I mean, I was already working in my career for 10 years. So it's not that I didn't know anything. I have an MBA and I did computer science as my uni degree. And I specialize in marketing as well. So it's like I had a lot of knowledge about how to do marketing, right? Because I was already doing companies. But when it comes to the intricacies of building a business, it was all learned as I was doing, as I was talking to people and listening to amazing people out there, reading a lot of essays on Y Combinator, Paul Graham, all of those things that help you to understand metrics, understand growth, understand how to build an ideal team. And yeah, it's a very good question, because I don't have like hey, you have to do these 5 things and then you're going to be successful, right? As an entrepreneur from 0 to 1, I guess the one thing that you need to do is to have a growth mindset, of course. And the other thing you need to do is to crave for learning, to be hyper curious, to be there with the right intention and right drive to learn from others and to do, even though you might fail multiple times while you're doing that.
Definitely. And I guess just be nice to everyone along the way so that they carry on backing you after your failures and you don't offend anyone. But yes.
That 100%. Like, don't piss people off, right? Be
Yes.
nice, because, a lot of kindness back when you're kind to people.
Yeah, and certainly as soon as you can start giving back. Then when you started One, how did you know that you were ready to start the second company? And then what went wrong and what went right initially in terms of, okay, how did you actually talk with your co-founders about the fact that you're going to be starting a completely different company and have enough time in a day to split yourself? And then where did it kind of go wrong?
I got very interested in 3D printing. I was looking at the world of, yeah, building stuff. And I've been always drawn to beauty and fashion and design and stuff like that. I'm a very colorful person, as you can see, right? Being Brazilian, I think it helps. I need color around me. And I bought a 3D printer because I was just curious. The moment that I printed my first bracelet, I was marveled about that. I was like, wait a minute. So does that mean that I could create a company or a marketplace or something that I only produce the products that someone wants to buy, like immediately, and I can send this file to, I don't know, to New York for someone to print there instead of shipping that product to them? To me, that was like revolutionary. I looked at 3D printing and in combination with beauty and fashion, I was like, this could change really the world of fashion. And we all know, I mean, I researched a lot on that, like the amount of stuff that is produced that end up in landfills in China, because, you know, it's still like more than 50% of every clothing that you see on the shops and jewelry end up in the landfills because people just don't buy it. It's all overproduction. And so to me, there was a massive opportunity there. So I had a dinner with an ex-colleague of mine from the times of Nokia. And he's like an amazing guy, like larger than life, German guy with the vibe of an Italian, you know, it's like biz dev, like bulldozer, let's get shit done. And I was just having a conversation with him. I said, I have this idea and we can do this and it could be a marketplace and we have all these designers working with us. And he got so much into the idea. He was like, Roberta, we have to do this. Can we do this, please? And I was like, yeah, that's an idea. But I mean, I have another company to run, right? And at the end of 2 hours conversation over dinner, he was like, okay, let me think about that. And then we can reconvene. A week after, he contacted me and say, look, I made the decision. We have to do this. I'm going to quit my job and we'll go all in. And I was like, wow, Andre, let's just do this. And that's how everything started with the second company. It was very much passion driven, but also people driven, because I am all about this. I'm all about building stuff with people who I respect, who are smarter than me, who want to create amazing things to the world. It was a very tough conversation with my co-founders, of course, because, well, my previous co-founders, still current co-founders at Bossa, because they were very concerned that I would not have the right attention to the business anymore. And I reassured them to say, look, that's it's not going to happen. I will make sure that the two businesses are well looked after.
And then
it was tough.
So then how did you manage that role suddenly having less time, and how long did it take for you to then reach burnout, and what was that process?
It was about a year until I reached burnout. So Wonderlook, which is the second company, I started to work on Wonderlook on my lunchtime, evenings, and weekends while I was doing all of the work days still at Bossa. I don't think I neglected either company. The good thing about Bossa is that I was not the CEO and I never wanted to be the CEO. So I think that benefited me. So I've been always the CMO. And so there's a lot of responsibilities as a CEO that you don't want to delegate. And so I think that was the lucky part, that yeah, I could deal with the two companies because I crafted my space and my contribution to each company the way that I knew I could contribute best.
So what was it, as then when the look became more of a full-on thing over the year, that it then became difficult, that you had the burnout, or was it just working too much?
Yeah, it was a combination of both. Yeah, it was getting bigger. We raised £500,000. Of course, we started to have like commitments with investors. From Bossa side as well, we had games that we were launching, so that required a lot of my time there and a lot of my energy. Same thing from Wonderlook perspective. It got to a point that, yeah, the two things started to compete for my time and my energy. And because I can go on and on in terms of working, you know, night and day, I didn't realize I was driving myself to a point that I couldn't wake up in the morning and be, excited to do any work. At some point I just crashed. I was literally like gradually within a space of a week, I started to feel my energy levels really going down, my irritability going really high. And at some point, I couldn't get out of bed. I was like, I'm exhausted, exhausted. And that's the point that I had to find a better way to deal with the two big roles that I put myself into.
Well, do you think looking back there were some warning signs before like the energy just suddenly disappeared, or was it just sort of one week it's just you just lost like the motivation and energy and needed like a break?
No, there were warning signs. I think the warning signs were I was not the usual optimistic self. So most of the time I'm looking at the glass half full. And my co-founders always appreciated that in me, that even the worst situations, I'm always the one who comes with a word or like something to say, hey guys, it's gonna be fine. Look at the positive side of it, right? And I was no longer doing that. I was getting a little bit grumpy and negative and not my optimist self. And also like my sleeping patterns became quite sketchy. So sometimes, I would have insomnia every now and then and be in a quite a overexcited mode most of the time. And like not just having like a proper rhythm, just going up and down. I think that's the key thing for me, when you have this overexcitement moment and then suddenly you're like, okay, I need to get out of this. So I think these were kind of the most crucial signs.
That's interesting. And so how then did you fix it in terms of, did you just have like a month complete break from everything and then come back with energy, or did you just sort of rearrange your work days so it was more sensible?
Yeah, I took a couple of weeks off. I told my co-founders, I said, guys, I'm not in the right place. I really need to rest a little bit and I need to reflect and I need to reconsider this decision that I made, because it was made in with the best intention possible and drive, right? But that's not sustainable long term. And that was the moment after those two weeks. That was the moment that I decided to go non-exec on the second business. And I went to my co-founder, Chandra, and said, hey, I cannot be like full-time operational in the two businesses, but I'm here to help you. And I will still be communicating to the world about Wonderlook and being, the face of the brand. But I won't be able to be on the day-to-day as much as I have been doing anymore. And I even offered, giving some of my shares back to him, like all those things. Again, talking about being kind and nice to people, right? That's not his fault that I crashed and I went to something that was kind of bigger than I could hold. But yeah, that's what I believe in life, is like, it's all about having frank conversations with people. That's the best you can do.
No, with you, it's really hard to sort of say that you've taken too much on, especially when you have all these sort of ideas of what you can achieve and stuff, which is why it's really hard to talk about burnout or necessarily reflect on these things, because you're like, oh, maybe I'll work through this problem and get there. Yeah, it was just interesting hearing the whole story really of warning signs of like, yeah, I've had quite a lot of those issues as well, of my sleep patterns have just gone really sketchy and things. And just when you're overworking and you wake up and literally your first thing is like straight onto a call for business of what you're doing for the day, and then like you're working till like 2 or 3 o'clock on like pitch deck or like 3 a.m. kind of thing, and then not sleeping well because you can't sleep, and then next thing you're back on a call planning your day, and it's like you sort of lose track of why you're even doing things. And yes,
it's a circle. You go into certain patterns of behavior that, you need to do something radical to break that cycle, right? Last time I got nearly burned out because I'm learning my triggers. I just said to myself, I need to get out of London. I went to Portugal and I spent a week there working from there, but like by the sun, because I know the sun energizes me so much and encourages me to go out and go for a run, right? So I think you need to be kind to yourself to see those patterns and break the cycle and do something that would literally break the cycle. Either it's like, taking 2 weeks off or going somewhere that you enjoy or staying with your family, anything that would be very different to your current routine.
cool. Like we've had a complete sort of reset of like what our routines are sort of over the Christmas break. We've been reflecting on how we're working. We're like, yeah, this is really unsustainable. Like we need to kind of run this business for years, not like the next month. So should probably have some time to ourselves in the morning before calls start to like do some stuff for ourselves and make sure we're getting enough exercise, eating healthy and reflecting and stuff. So yeah.
Exactly.
So back on my like journaling and meditating I found super useful as well, which I just stopped whilst I was doing Techstars last year just because there was just so much going on. And that's usually a sign of what you need the most is when you didn't have time for it. Just highly ironic. But do you keep a practice of like meditating or journaling or?
Yeah, so I have been doing a lot of experimentation with my morning routine and evening routine as well. But evening for me is a little bit trickier because I'm like a night owl, so I can work until like midnight easily. My energy levels just goes up during the day up until the night. But I managed to crack my morning routine probably in the last 3 months only. And I did a lot of experimentation and I settled on something that makes me feel really good. So I wake up, going to do meditation for 1 hour. And that was difficult in the first few days because your mind is all over the place. But it's so impressive to observe that how much your mind, you have your inner chatter, anyone has, right? Your inner chatter going on so much. So 1 hour meditation, and then I do an exercise. So it could be like yoga, stretching, Pilates, or a little bit of a dance because I love dancing to the music that I
Nice.
love. So literally like 20, 30 minutes, doing exercise, moving the body. Then I do morning pages. So I don't know if you heard of The Artist Way. It's a book by Julia Cameron. So she talks about this practice of just writing down on a paper what is in your mind. And to me, it's amazing because again, it's like I'm trapping all of this chatter in my brain into the paper. So do probably usually like 20 minutes of that. Then I have a really high protein based breakfast and usually like 2 eggs, as simple as that. And that's it. And then I go to the shower and I'm ready to start the day. So that's my morning routine that really keeps me going.
Nice, that sounds great. Yeah, I've been looking at getting to bed earlier and sort of waking up earlier again lately. Like, yeah, I keep on waking up in the middle of the night, which is super annoying. But I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like power through it. And yeah, I used to do 1 hour meditation. It was like the best thing, and now haven't been doing that at all. But it's just your mind just goes nuts, and then like by the end of the hour, you're like, oh yeah, there's so much stuff that is going on that needs to kind of come out, but then doesn't actually need to go anywhere. But it's just so peaceful and relaxing. You get so much clarity on what the problems are that you have and what you need to be thinking about.
It is.
Yeah.
Things come to you. And, I take no drugs, right? And I was telling a friend the other day that she told me, it looks like you do anything. I said, no, nothing. Through doing meditation, I started to, one, appreciate the skies of London so much more. So sometimes I do open eyes meditation and I'm just marveled by what I see. It's just so, so beautiful when it's not great. And second thing, the little things, right? So, when you get out of the shower and then you have your towel coming, it's usually on the heating rack. And then you pick up the towel and it's usually very warm, right? And then I embrace the warmness of the towel and I feel that on my skin. And I kid you not, I only started to pay attention to this after I started to do this 1 hour meditation for, let's say, a month. It's just like your senses become so much more attuned.
Do any kind of like gratitude journaling and other things as well? Or is that sort of go into your morning pages?
Usually go to my morning pages.
Okay. For meditation, do you follow any guided stuff or do you just sit for the whole hour? Or I've kind of been liking listening to like a 10-minute sort of a stoic meditation or something, and then trying to spend the rest of the half an hour to an hour with silence, but like kicking it off with something. I don't know what your normal practice is.
I do stillness. So I do
It's
nothing.
nothing.
I just sit down and I look at the window, outside the window. That's it. Why did you stop meditating, by the way? You just said that you were doing 1 hour and nowadays you're
Yeah,
kind of
well, I
getting
did like
off.
the whole Vipassana 10-day silent retreat, full on meditation where you spend like 12 hours meditating, and then kept up a good hour after that. It was awesome. And then just life, more and more things coming in at you. And with the tech stars, it's just you're just being pulled in so many directions at once. And your entire day is just on calls dealing with like tech stars stuff. And then you have to run the company as well. And you're trying to employ people and you're trying to raise money. And like, there's just so much stuff going on. And it was just like, yeah, pretty full on. And so I've kept a journal and I've been meditating for like the past sort of 5 years. And like both of those stopped during the time that I was at Techstars, which is insane. It's just like, that's like my biggest habit that I had pretty much which wasn't great. So I'm very happy to be back on those routines. But yeah, I did want to know around your meditation. Is then you said practice stillness. Do you try and like not move at all, or do you kind of go with the flow of like, oh, my leg hurts after 10 minutes, so I'm going to move?
I do move. I have
Okay.
to. My leg hurts.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It super hurts, but on the
Yeah.
Vipassana, they really try to push you to not move, so you can kind of like feel your pain and just be like, just accept it, and you try to accept everything and know that all things will pass. And it gets so painful that if you've ever tried doing an hour, like you don't have to go for the full hour, but try like maybe just half an hour of like not moving and see if you can get there, because it just gets you so much more used to feeling these things in your body and not reacting to them. And so when you have like anger coming or like annoyance or you're scared about something, you can feel it, but you don't have to like run with that feeling and let it control you. You can just go, oh, there's this feeling. I wonder what it's doing to me and whether I should do the thing it's making me do. Or like I could just apply some logic right now and actually not get angry and shout at this person, because actually I should just be nice to them, move on with my life and feel happy about the fact I didn't shout or haven't annoyed someone that I don't need to annoy, kind of thing. And so it's really good for that. And also for your pain tolerance, if you do other things that end up being painful, it's kind of handy, which maybe you don't expect to do, but you never know. You can randomly break a leg when you're not expecting it. And it's kind of useful to be able to
I really
level
like
head.
that. I
Yeah.
will try. I will definitely try tomorrow, see how it goes. That's a good idea. I like the concept of it, that you
Mm.
just stay with the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. When you just notice your feelings for what they are and not be so reactive, it just gives you that like sort of higher level thinking kind of thing. Is in if you think about the fact that every human could write out what they should have eaten for the past 10 years to make them a healthy person and what they need to eat for the next 10 years. And it's easy. Everyone knows what they should eat, but it's so hard during the day because you're just driven away by like your current sort of experiencing self. It's like, oh, maybe I want this thing, or maybe I should get that thing. And you don't like have the control there in the moment because you just follow your feelings. If you can kind of step back from your immediate feelings and just have a bit more control, then you can kind of basically do whatever the hell you want to do. And obviously, it's like a huge amount of mastery, and you're never going to get there completely, but it's still a few steps along the enlightenment journey when you can kind of, yes, not react to stuff so much.
Yeah, yeah.
So there you go, top tip.
Good one, good one. I think the practice of a morning routine or an evening routine, whatever you choose to have, right? Anyone choose to have. I think just by practicing that on a day-to-day basis already put you in a
Mm,
position that you become much more, you create more self-control, you create more of these winning moments of your days, that you feel that you can control your impulses, and the moments that you feel annoyed or you feel like overreacting to something, you go back and say, well, if I can do something that is as difficult as waking up so early to do a 1 hour meditation, I surely can, control my feelings about
mm,
that particular situation, right?
totally.
It's such a mental exercise regardless.
How you do something is how you do anything, and you sort of really change how you define yourself and what you kind of expect of what you're going to do when you can do something like an hour of meditation. It really does change the game. What one thing actually was, is your earring 3D printed? Just because of I saw it and was like, this is super cool, and wondered if you made that yourself.
It's not 3D printed, and a lot of people ask me that. I bought in Brazil. I saw that in a shop, in a designer shop. It was like, that's it. I'm a big fan of David Bowie,
Yeah.
and so the lightning bolt became my thing. So I wear these all the time, and when I'm not wearing it, people ask, "Where's my lightning bolt earring?" I should be wearing it, so I'm trapped forever.
Okay, but sounds like you're happy being defined by that for now. That's
That's
cool.
okay.
I like the just because it comes up in all like your other branding and stuff, and just in general, you've done like a great job of, I don't know, branding. Everything just has like the same sort of color format and just looks like, oh, this is like a Beta Luca thing. It's nice. So I did want to go on to, you're talking about, well, as we started it, but you do so many different things, and you spoke about like being sort of like a parallel entrepreneur and like two things going on, but then you've got all your side hustles in terms of speaking and podcasting. And how are you sort of effective at all these things, which we sort of covered a little bit? And then also, how do you define yourself when you do so many different things, or do you try to get away from having a definition of who you are even?
Two things. So one, in terms of the how can I manage to do all of this, that's a lot of intentionality of the how I allocate my time. So one of the best decisions I've made in the last couple of years was to have an executive assistant. And she really helps me with, my whole calendar, who talks to me when, and yeah, it's incredible addition to my days to have someone who can help me with my calendar planning. and meetings and etc. The other day that I do as well is I'm very disciplined on the day to day. So I have themes per day and I have a lot of calendar blocking. So I do calendar blocking for email catching up. I do calendar blocking for all the meetings, of course, right, that I have. And I do also kind of thematic days. So each day has a sort of a theme, right? So one day is all about content creation. The other day could be all about producing and thinking and researching on Hypercurious. The other day could be all about my angel investment. And I try to concentrate all the meetings and thinking time into those boxes, into those days of the week. And Sundays I usually use for catching up on things that I couldn't do during the week, and also planning ahead for the following week. And sometimes I find out on Sundays that I have a lot of meetings on the following week that are not that relevant, or they're not as urgent. They could wait a little bit if I have something else that is more important to be done. And then it's the moment that I ask Donna to shuffle my calendar a little bit to accommodate the stuff that I want to do. And Saturdays are just like for anything I want to do. So it's like totally free day. I put no pressure on myself to do anything. I'm just, if I want to sit down and do some work, I'll do it. If I want to go out and walk for 2 hours, I'm going to do it. Have a cup of tea for the whole day, I'll do it, right? So it's quite free. So that is a key thing for me to deal with all of my projects, is to be very disciplined about my time. And the second part of your question, in terms of how I define myself, I've struggled with that, I have to be honest. Yeah, for long enough, I was like, but am I an entrepreneur? Am I a YouTuber? Because I've been building a YouTube channel as well. Am I a speaker? Am I an investor? And I have to admit to you, last year, 2020 was the year of the great pause, right? Everyone got locked in their homes and had time to think and to reflect without commuting an hour to work, right? Even though I don't commute an hour to work. And I think that there was a moment that I started to reflect about that. I was like, but why do I need to define myself very clearly? Why do I have to put myself in a box? I think we have a perception that society wants us to be in a box, but I don't think that's true. I think that's in our mind. I think it's more of a branding thing other than anything. We all want to define ourselves with one thing, but why? It's not really healthy that we say we just one thing, or that we are our job title, right? We're not our job titles. We cannot be trapped into our job titles. We are human beings that are evolving every day. So I could say I'm someone else every day, right? So I started to detach myself from this idea that I have to have one identity to define myself. It's tough because it haunts you every now and then when you go to introduce yourself to people, but embrace it, right? What can I do?
Yeah, definitely. As in, something I've really struggled with, especially when you have people that are like, oh, this is like your calling, or this is like the thing that you're really good at, you should be doing this your whole time. And you're like, that's great. But like when I was doing the other thing, that's what they said. And I kind of, I want to do both. And also, I mean, you started doing stand-up comedy this year. And like, there's just so many things where you're just this creative person that's good at so much stuff. Like, why should you be defined in one area? But do you ever feel regret that perhaps if you had focused on one thing that you would have nailed it and been like the sort of the person in that area? Or do you think that like you've definitely done it in the right way?
I have thoughts on that every now and then. And I started to question myself exactly that. It was like, really, if I did less, would I achieve more? Or is it about defining what is your range of things that matter to you? And I ended up with the latter answer to me, because it's not that I'm going to directions that are completely crazy, right? I'm not, I don't know, becoming a fan maker or, something that is completely out there, disconnected to building companies or speaking to people about ideas, right? I think everything that I do is complementary. And when I think about my, long-term pursuits and my long-term purpose in life, I do feel that the stuff that I do, they all connect to each other. And so even though there are multiple things going on, they are all things that really matter to me. And so, one, I don't have regrets. And I don't believe that having regrets is a good thing for life, because you're never able to go back in time and change your decision or your path, right? So what's the point of having regrets? And also, the moment that you made the decision, you made the best decision you could made with the resources you had, with the knowledge you had, with the people around you, right? So there's no point of going back and saying, what if I did that? I look more to the future. What if I do that, right? And so I think, yes, it could have been very different. Would I be happy? Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree on regrets, as in they're powerful educators to sort of show you, okay, how would I change how I do things? But as in not letting them get like having negative regrets, I guess is bad. Like having time to reflect, like when you meditate and journal, to sort of think, okay, how could I be a better version of myself and continue evolving? Like regrets are useful to think about, but not overly ruminate on, I guess, and finding the right balance, I think is important. But
you're right. It's very different, right? You're reflecting on stuff that happened and things that you didn't do so well when you expected you would do well, right? Reflecting on your failures, reflecting on your pain, reflecting on your decisions. It's all very healthy because that's how you build your growth mindset, how you become a better person every day. But like regret, I think it's such a heavy word to say, yeah, in another life I would have done something different. If you have something like that, it's just not healthy for anyone.
cool. So maybe you can have positive reflections on mistakes. That's
Yeah.
allowed.
Yes.
I might keep that. And now a quick break to talk about the benefits of CBD. For those of you who aren't familiar with CBD, it's the part of the cannabis plant that doesn't get you high, which might not be what you're after, but for me, it's great. And for centuries, it's been used as a completely safe and natural way to manage stress, help you sleep better, and improve focus and treat inflammation. Recently, I've become obsessed with canibrands.com. That's CANIBRANDS. Their CBD products are rigorously lab tested, endorsed by pro athletes, and just benefit your overall health and wellness. The majority of people who try Canny Brands products say that they're able to eliminate or cut down many of their other supplements and over-the-counter medications. For me, their Canny Sleep product worked amazing to help me fall asleep and just wake up feeling energized. I also love their Canny Fresh oral spray, which helps me be so much more productive during the day. So just visit cannybrands.com and use the discount code GMP25 for 25% off the cost of your product. That's CANIBRANDS.com. And the discount code is GMP25. The GMP stands for Growth Mindset Podcast. And yeah, get trying it today if you want to see the benefits of CBD. Okay. And then now backtracking back to the first part of that answer around like having many hats and just your discipline to do everything. That was a really interesting answer you gave around your intentionality and having someone really assist you. And I guess one first thing is taking yourself seriously enough to feel like you're worthy of having an executive assistant to manage you. It seems like a big step I feel like that was a bit of a mindset shift for you to go from like, okay, one, I'm not very good as a human that I can't organize myself, but two, I'm so awesome as a human that I need someone to do this and that it's worthy of a human's time doing this. So, I mean, how did you manage that in your head to do that?
Such a good point. I usually think I'm not as good as that as I could. Who are the people who could help me to leverage the things that I'm really good at? So for my social media, for instance, I have people helping me to create, all of the amazing stuff that I put out there on my Instagram and LinkedIn. I write everything and I do my reflection on the stuff that I want to put it out, and they help me with all the design and stuff because that's not something that I'm good at. Same thing with the executive assistant is a thing that by talking to other entrepreneurs, at some point someone mentioned that and I was very curious. It was like, tell me more about that. How does it work? And then it takes you like a little bit of time for you to understand that you can let certain things go because you're not that good at managing your calendar as you imagine you were. And the moment that you allow other people to do their best, right, to do their specialties around you, it frees up your time and your mental space to dedicate more to the stuff that you enjoy doing. And I think that kind of collaboration really is magical. And it doesn't need to be that you have, a lot of employees around you. I don't, right? You can have freelancers. You can leverage people who are, have micro agencies to do stuff with you. And yeah, those decisions, they have been very helpful for me. I'm very okay to say that I don't know how to do something and I'm gonna learn, do my best to learn and be, amazing at that. Or if I'm not into that, if not something that I'm interested in evolving or developing for myself, I'm going to find the best person who can help me.
Cool. That's interesting. So I've had an assistant on the podcast, but I don't have like a personal assistant as such. And I'm thinking that maybe someone to organize my life would be really super useful. And we'll see. Definitely on the Indistractable from Nir Ayal, who has talks about the discipline themes for your days and calendar blocking. As I've started doing that, which is great. And I've always worked on Saturdays, and then Sundays has been like my day off, or like I'd sort of go for like a really long run in the morning and then maybe like chill out a bit, see some friends in the afternoon, or maybe do some work. But one thing I found quite hard was like in November and like this month, like living with like the rest of my colleagues, we've had like longer weekends and stuff, or like not time to work during the evenings and things. And it's suddenly I felt like I've had to get all my work done in like more of the normal time allocation. And it's like, whoa, I actually, I want to have time to decompress by myself and do stuff. And I think one of the decisions I sort of, I guess has been a bit more a sacrifice is actually being much more like alone and not really having the time for like relationships and other things that most people normally have in their life. Cause like I enjoy working and stuff. I just wondered with you as in, do you feel like you've made sacrifices on relationships as such, like working too hard?
Definitely, yes. I think there's a benefit of having my whole family in Brazil. Well, there's a benefit and a bad thing, right? So good thing and bad thing. So good thing is that, yeah, I don't have the commitments with family and like family dinners and family lunch or whatever, right? They're all there. So I'm here on my own with my husband. So it means that the two of us, we have our, the freedom to do whatever we want. And we don't even have a dog, which I'm actually thinking of having because I'm really keen to have a dog. But just the feeling of I have to look after something, right? It's a little bit daunting to me beyond, everything that I already look after. So going back to the point, I think, yeah, I have neglected for a while. And about 5 years ago, I made a decision that I didn't want to do that anymore. I really wanted to open space, yeah, to give time and attention to family and friends. And I built two really beautiful friendships out of that. Like she's my best friend nowadays. And if I hadn't done that, hadn't opened to a little bit of a space on my days to build, to nurture really a friendship, that would never have happened. And same thing with my mom and my sister and my nephew. Like whenever they need me, I'm going to drop anything, everything to be with them. So I used to neglect a lot, and same thing with my husband, right? Every now and then it would be a situation that both of us would be a lot on our phones, and suddenly we're like, okay, actually we're growing apart and something needs to change here. So we need to change. I think everyone who's a high achiever, who's an entrepreneur, lives there at some point in their entrepreneurial life because we love what we do, right? We love building stuff. We love creating something new to the world and dedicating our attention to that instead of loved ones.
Definitely. Before you, I don't know if you dated before your husband or if like he was sort of the one since forever, but in terms of your personal relationship, like I've been quite interested by what the sort of things people need when they are like hyper curious high achievers, just to, in terms of thinking about my own needs and what I look for in my own relationships and where it goes wrong when I kind of think that I want something and it's just not the right thing. And did you find that you really needed someone that kind of was almost like a coach to you and could like really be on board with the things that you were doing, or was it easier to have people that were sort of maybe didn't know and it was just like almost like taking a holiday from your work, like being with them? As in, I don't know what you now have with your husband. Do you talk a lot about work, or is it just completely sidestep? Do they kind of challenge you on your thinking? Like if you could unpack, that would be nice. If you don't want to, that's also fine.
Yeah, my husband is my best friend. It's really important for me that we talk and that we support each other. And I would never be able to be with someone who does not get it, right? And we both mega high achievers, and we have to support each other. I think having a relationship with someone that is aligned on the values, right? I decided not to have children. He's fine with that. He doesn't want children either. So that's really important, right? Those big decisions. Yeah, you have to be aligned. Otherwise, you're gonna have a relationship that is not gonna last because there's gonna be always like a pull from one side to the other. And you want to be adding value to each other. You want to be supporting each other. You want to be there for each other. And I'm very lucky or glad or whatever the word is that I have this with him and with a lot of people who are surrounding me.
That's really interesting, and it's sort of where I've been coming towards in my own conclusions of like definitely someone sort of challenge and be really on board with my values and sort of get it and be kind of supporting, but also wanting to go and do their own things, which I can be supporting them on kind of thing. And if not, it just implodes and epic boredom from my side, pretty much.
Exactly. There are moments in the relationship, right? So, of course, it's not like the same thing every day, but you have to find ways to understand which vibe each one is. And like, is a moment that I need to be on my own or he needs to be on his own? You know, is a moment that we want to be together because we like miss each other so much because we have been working too hard. You know, I think that kind of pull and push needs to be happening in the relationship all the time. Otherwise, you either get bored or you just overwhelm each other, right? With, you know, too much attention. We don't want that. We need a space.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've been thinking about this a bit. I've just been wondering around sort of what are the kind of relationships behind sort of the really great people, as in like Einstein, you need to have someone like that's at this level that can kind of compete with your intelligence to sort of just be interesting to talk to and like actually sort of talk about the things that you're sort of trying to achieve and sort of push you forwards and ask you questions at a level where they can like, understand where your brain's going. Yeah, I've just been wondering like what the other halves must have been like of all like the great people in history and stuff. Because yeah, I'd like to know. Maybe there's a podcast in that of going through all these people, but
Totally.
yeah,
Absolutely. There is a podcasting there. Yeah. I would love to learn from people.
definitely.
Although we know that some of them, like, you know, Steve Jobs and etc., they neglected a little bit.
Yeah, fair amount of issues, it seems.
But his
Definitely.
girlfriend is amazing, right?
Yeah, I swear, Elon Musk, he keeps on doing things that I've like put as my life goals. When I was at uni, I was like going to start the new like electric wave of things, and then he starts doing it, and I'm going to go to Mars. Then he starts doing it, and it's like Grimes instantly fell in love with her when I saw her, and then now he's
Right.
like bloody husband. I'm like, fuck's sake, Elon, let me have one thing
You're
at
doing
least. Yeah,
everything right. Damn it. Your
so annoying.
legacy. Yeah.
About quite a few hard things and mindset shifts along your journey. What is there any that we haven't spoken about that you think were really impactful on you in terms of changing how you think about yourself or discovering like a better mindset that's really unlocked a better part of you?
We spoke a lot about that, right? I think the key thing for me is a lot of people, especially women, they ask me, how can you be so confident? How can you just go for it and be so courageous and stuff? And I think it's all in the training. The more you do it, the more you feel that you can do it. And I think that's the theme, you know, for me. I was a very pretty normal person and child as I was growing up. I had no special talents or anything that say, oh my gosh, she's gonna be the most gifted person in X or Y. And I think the moment that you put yourself in a position that you're a sponge and you're not taking your knowledge for granted. I mean, yeah, you literally not putting yourself in a position that you know it all. You're always in the beginner's mind. I think that makes a huge difference. And the same thing goes with confidence. I don't think I'm the most confident person whatsoever. I don't feel I'm that confident. It's just the feedback that I get from people. And yet, I think that comes from behavior of acting when I think I should act as opposed to just overthinking.
Definitely. I think another thing on my side is definitely accepting not being good at things. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but when you can get over that and just go into things and expect to be really bad initially and just see that as part of the journey to get to being good at something, then you can kind of just enjoy just doing stuff and not overthinking it too much straight away. And like I haven't really used Instagram much, but the last few weeks I thought I should probably actually work out how to use it just as I'm building a social network and trying to like think about like, human behaviors and what they're doing and why they're trying to do stuff. And yeah, and generally like, mostly messing stuff up. Like I'll be doing a post trying to tag things and it all goes wrong, or trying to do a poll but I've done the wrong thing. And but it's just like nice and just accepted that I'm going to be shit at it and I don't really care and that's fine.
I know,
Yeah.
and those things are in the grand scheme of things, they are not as bad, right?
Yeah.
And we feel that, oh my god, it was to be perfect, it was to be like, you know, the right hashtag or the right moment of doing the post, and suddenly you're like, well, but that's not really that important, right? And
Mm.
if you mess up, I mean, there are few things that you mess up like big time that is totally reversible. And I think, yeah, Jeff Bezos talks about that, right? That the majority of decisions that we make on our day to day, they are reversible.
Mm.
So if it doesn't work, you can change that. And only a few are irreversible. And sometimes we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves on all of the decisions. And we just get into the stuck mode of inaction because of that.
So like two-door decisions as in you can go back on them versus like one way, and just like so much stuff where I feel like I've been quite dyslexic and my thoughts don't just sort of come out clearly. They always come out in a bit of like a mess. It took me a long time to even speak that much because like I couldn't really work out which of the billion avenues that were available to me to go down and which one would be best. And it took a long time to actually just say words. But it's still so much stuff where like I struggle to just do the thing I need to do, and I'm like, okay, I'll just need to like sit on that for 2 days and come back to it later. But then if I'm doing too much, then like, it just doesn't happen. And just trying to be like, okay, now's the time to do it, just do it, and not too obsessed or feel like I need to waste time has been really hard. As in, do you think imposter syndrome is worse for women, or it's just like a human thing and it's just because you're a woman that you've been speaking to women about it?
I think imposter syndrome is worse for women because we are more concerned about how people see us than men. Absolutely generalization, right? But you can even look at stand-up comedy, for instance. Same thing is like historically, there's been more men becoming amazing stand-up comedians because they care less about how people see them. And women are usually more kind of behaved, and and we grow up with our parents saying, oh, sit still and have your dress ready so it doesn't cover whatever. There's a whole thing of the society always kind of protecting women to behave in a very nice way, right? And so I think inherently we ended up having more of those kind of nagging things on the back of our mind, asking what if we're not being adequate, what if we're not fitting in to a certain position. And then of course imposter syndrome is totally related to that, is related to you feeling that you're not enough to deserve something that is happening to you, right? So I've seen a lot in women, but also I've seen a lot in high achieving people, regardless of the gender. The more you achieve in life, the more you feel that, oh, am I really responsible for that? Is it really happening? Am I that good as people are saying that I am? Because society starts giving you a bunch of prizes and cover of the magazine and whatever, and Forbes top whatever. And then you're like, oh, and I have a BAFTA, right? And I remember when I got a BAFTA, I spent probably the first 6 months not believing that I won a BAFTA award. And I really could not cope with that. My mind was like, this is surreal. This is not me. I don't deserve that. I never won this. To the point that I had to bring home and literally leave by my bedside for like months, because then I would wake up and look at the BAFTA and say, okay, that's mine, right? So I think we do have that. That's totally connected to confidence. I think confidence goes beyond the imposter syndrome. It's also about the little things that happen as you're growing up. There might be a criticism that you receive from someone or your parents that suddenly make you shut down. And you have to just do therapy and dismantle those things in your mind so that you can feel a little bit more confident.
Okay, how do you then develop these confidences or get over like the small little things in your mind?
I learned something in therapy that is really interesting. We have 3 regulation systems in our brains, and they are the drive system, the threat system, and the soothing system. And when we become high achievers, we end up exercising a lot of the drive and the threat systems, and we neglect the soothing system. And what do they do? Like the drive system is the dopamine, is like what keeps you moving, what keeps you like, more and more achieving more. The threat is that fear of failure, the fear of what if I don't do that, I won't be able to succeed or achieve. The soothing system is related to the oxytocin. And the oxytocin is the neurotransmitter that is related to the hug, right? When you hug someone, you release that hormone, which is, you feel good, you feel loved. And I think a lot of the time, the more we achieve things, the less we activate the soothing system and the less good about ourselves we feel. And so you want to all the time be connecting to your loved ones. You all the time want to be going to nature, to doing meditation, to do things that calm you down and that you feel very secure and loved, so that you're not in a pattern of feeling that you're not good enough. Did it make sense?
That made lots of sense. I was just making notes, being like, damn, this is what's going wrong with me. Cool. That was really, really useful. Thanks so much for like the biggest tip of therapy. Yeah, I found therapy much more than I was expecting because I wasn't actually depressed or had any major problems when I went into it. But I just find it super interesting to unpack and feel like maybe I should get a therapist again just for talking about things like that, which are pretty big and really big change. Do you have a regular therapist still, or was that just something you took whilst you were having burnout and these things?
No, I did when I had burnout and depression many years ago. So I usually go in punctual manners. So yeah, I have something I want to cure, I want to find what's going on. I go through like 5, 6 therapy sessions, and then I literally tell myself to not to go back there. I usually tell my therapist, like, have we done enough? Is that okay if we stop this? It's done. Because
Interesting.
otherwise you just feel, I don't like to feel dependent on something forever, right? I think we all good human beings to learn to take the next steps and then do it ourselves.
It's cool. It's a good mindset. That's sort of my side of things, but I have also know people that kind of want to have just a therapist permanently, so they don't need to be so dependent on other things, I guess. It's again, balance. Anyway, winding up now. So some things I prepared you with was one, what is one of the kindest things someone's ever done for you?
Don't have one kindest thing that someone has done for me. I have a lot of kindness that happens on the day to day for me. And I try to pay attention and be grateful for that. So, one very simple example, the building where I live, the guys who look after the building, like they usually bring the parcels to each of us in our flat, right? And
Nice.
I noticed that every day that they do that, and nowadays in lockdown, right, that happens frequently because we all, ordering stuff from Amazon. They leave the package outside and they kind of wait for me to open the door a little bit distant, right? Because, wearing masks and etc. And they always make sure to ask me if I'm okay. And they say, hey, Roberta, how are you today? Are you well? Okay. And that thing is an act of kindness that it's just like the simple things that someone could make to you. He gains nothing, I gain nothing. But it's that little moment of, I care about you and I'm asking about how your day has been, right?
Mm.
And I think these are kind of the acts of kindness that we end up not paying attention so much in our day to day. And we used to pay even less attention before the lockdown, before the whole pandemic. And I think now with the new world where we're living, we are able to perceive those things much more closely. And to me, these, the accumulation of all those kind moments, what makes the kindness work for me.
100%. That was really good. I like that. I definitely I have been spending more time trying to sort of catch up with my friends and make sure they know that I have been thinking about them, even though I'm super busy and I do care and that kind of stuff. It's good. And it's so nice when I do get the odd text message from someone being like, Sam, are you okay? And I'm like, maybe not. Thanks for asking.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. It's like those moments of giving attention to people with so much craving that we were craving so much more before the pandemic, right? I don't think people are as present to each other. And when you give your attention, when you genuinely ask, how are you doing? It really makes a difference on somebody else's life.
Definitely. I guess that is one of the things that I prefer about when you're living sort of in the countryside or not in London and other things. There's more of those moments that can happen. But when you do have things like concierges and stuff, or like I became pretty good friends with like the people that used to run the biology department, well, like it's like the wardens and stuff, or actually the guy at Techstars who was on the office, like became our first employee because of like I became good mates with him in the first month that we were there. And by the second month, he was like, yeah, I've been thinking about quitting my job and I can do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, yeah, well, cool. That's nice. And then we have a great Javi. He's, hang out with him every day. We're going workouts, cooking together. It's been nice just for being nice to people that are in your life. So it comes back. And then secondly, what is one of your earliest memories?
So difficult. One of my earliest memories is when my parents got divorced. So it's not like a happy one, but I remember I went to
Sorry.
You asked for that. You asked it. I remember I went to the kitchen and they were having a chat and I thought they were laughing. And then I was like getting all excited. I was 6 years old. I was all getting excited. I was like, so what's going on? And then suddenly they were actually crying. When I looked at their faces, they were crying. And it's so weird that that kind of moment got imprinted in my brain for all this time, right? And of course, I mean, everything went fine afterwards. And again, like, yeah, my mom is amazing and like look after us so well. And my dad is present as well. So it's all good. But I think that, that moment that you realize that you have no control, of what is going on. Suddenly as a child, you're like, but how come you guys getting divorced and you didn't even involve me in this decision? I think that's what I was thinking at the moment. But yeah, anyway, that was one of the first ones. But I have a lot of happy ones as well. I remember kind of going out to the park and kind of playing with my Barbies and with friends and etc.
Yeah, it's interesting asking this question, just seeing like the kind of the shocking moments that people do remember. Some of them are just really like random so that you can't even explain why, and others are sort of very like something that just sort of completely changes what you're expecting from reality of like think your parents are laughing actually like they're crying, and you're like you're not used to seeing parents crying, and it's like a huge shift of what you're expecting is pretty impactful. So yeah, thanks for that. I have really enjoyed interviewing you. This has been delightful. I've learned lots. There's an annoying amount of questions I still want to ask, but we definitely don't have time for, but that's life and only so many things, so
I'll make
it's
sure
all
I
good.
touch on those questions when you are on Hypercurious then.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Cool.
Cool.
Well,
Thank you
thanks so
for
much.
having me. It's been a great conversation, Sam.
Definitely. All right. Have a great day. Congratulations on listening to a whole episode of the Growth Mindset podcast. Before you race into another podcast, try pausing. Ask yourself, what have you learned? What could you change? How will you make that change happen? Did you press pause? Knowledge is useless without action. What did you learn? What should you change? And how will you make that change happen? You can tell us what you learned by contacting us through the website growthmindsetpodcast.com, and feel free to connect with us or our guests, or just peruse the show notes. Our Instagram is @growthmindsetpodcast, or follow me @samjamsnaps for a daily reminder to stop using Instagram. If you enjoy random acts of kindness and want to support the show, you can support us on Patreon or leave us a review on iTunes, and you'll make me very happy. And with that, keep learning and keep growing.